Fanfiction. You know it, you love it, and today, that's what we're going to talk about. As a young teenage girl, I spent countless hours reading hundreds of chapters of fanfiction. I longed for a sense of community and a place to spend my free time out of school, and I found it in fandom spaces. It was easy to feel like my voice was heard when I left comments on someone's work and interacted with others who had the same passions I did. The comment section was a space for camaraderie and support for both readers and writers. I enjoyed having direct conversations with authors of my favorite fanfiction stories, and with other readers, we helped to shape those stories. Being able to contribute to a piece of ongoing work in this way created a much needed sense of accomplishment and pride in me. So, eventually, I had enough courage to write my own fanfiction stories and was absolutely delighted when readers or other writers left kind and constructive comments for me to help me improve my writing. I felt more confident in my abilities and skills due to these online spaces I frequented. Not only did I improve as a writer, but I was also able to explore different topics or themes and just parts of my identity in the safe space of fandom, which helped me develop into a more well-rounded and understanding person. Fanfiction was a lifeline for me because I didn't have that same connection and community offline. It's so much more than just amateur writers creating derivative stories of already existing intellectual property or IP. My experience is not unique. I was only one of the many young girls and women who found themselves turning to fanfiction when reality proved unsatisfactory. In fact, the fanfiction space is heavily gendered towards women. The feminization of these spaces is intriguing because of how womanhood and femininity. The feminization of these spaces is intriguing because of how womanhood and femininity is written and presented in the stories. Women in these spaces unapologetically examine what it means to exist in a violent patriarchal society that doesn't respect their humanity. Common genres and tropes such as the Mary Sue allow women to reclaim agency in stories that push women to the sidelines, or slash fiction, which is homoerotic fanfic, gives women a chance to express their ideas on sexuality, relationships, and gender, among other things. Fanfic writers are giving themselves a voice when the publishing industry denies them the representation they truly desire. An examination of fanfiction on sites like Archive of Our Own, AO3, and Wattpad give insight to the effects on young women and how their reading habits are beginning to shape the publishing industry. The main appeal of fanfiction is how it serves as an escape from reality of life. It serves the same purpose as romance novels and is often perceived the same way. You know, misogyny. I remember my formative years spent secretly reading and writing on Wattpad because I witnessed girls who openly talked about it get relentlessly teased by the other students. And this was back in the early to mid 2010s when people openly hated on anything that young teen girls and women had strong interest in, such as Twilight. Now, there seems to be a shift happening where publishing companies are beginning to see the value, opportunity, and talent that is coming out of the fanfiction community, which is evidenced by commercial publishing and adaptations of multiple fanfiction works, such as, you know it, right, 50 Shades of Grey, right, which is Twilight fanfiction, or the After series, which is Harry Styles fanfiction, and The Mortal Instruments, which is Harry Potter fanfiction, among many, many more. These works are written by women who wanted to see a different version of their respective stories play out. Time to talk about capitalism. Yay! A big aspect of life for women and young girls is that they are constantly bombarded with ideas of how they should act and look, and typically the beauty standard is very Eurocentric, so it further pushes women of color to the fringes. Given these ideas of femininity, women are expected to comply unless they want to be like frowned upon or shamed by society and just like thrown in the trash. The halo effect is real. Nowadays, it's no secret that teenage girls are heavily impacted by social media. They are constantly exposed to picture perfect, skinny models that continue to reinforce these impossible beauty standards and solidify the Eurocentric images of femininity. In a 2023 advisory about social media, the U.S. Surgeon describes how social comparison driven by social media is associated with body dissatisfaction, disordered eating, and depressive symptoms, and the importance of creating safe digital environments during this critical stage of development. A safe space away from the image-based social media platforms comes in the form of fanfiction sites like Wattpad or Archive of Our Own. These text-based platforms allow impressionable, struggling teenagers to find stories in which they can see themselves in the characters and identify with the struggles and situations portrayed in those stories. In her article, Wattpad's Fictions of Care, Sarah Brulette describes this as new bibliotherapy and explains that it's just a cheap solution within a healthcare system lacking in sufficient resources. I'd argue that's why many readers don't care if the main character is a Mary Sue, and also why writers don't feel ashamed of using such a trope. If this is their form of escapism and therapy, then who's to tell them how to cope? Why does it matter if the main character is capable of everything and it's considered bad writing? Like, why does it matter? You know, this self-insert character allows the writer to say and do all the things they wish they could in their own life, but don't yet have the strength to. Another contributing factor for this need to escape into fanfiction is the general effects of living in today's society, in which it's much more difficult to live up to societal expectation. And so the idea of conforming is just much less attractive. As of 2025, trends show that adult children are staying with their parents longer, delaying romantic relationships, and getting married and having kids much later in life. Young women also feel that added pressure from societal expectations to become mothers, caretakers, or housewives. Such social circumstances call for an easy distraction, and reading or writing fanfiction is the perfect pastime. Not only is it easily accessible, but there is a fandom community for almost every book, film, TV show that a young woman could be interested in. These sites allow users to build connections outside of work or school. And in a hyper-individualist society where physical third spaces are practically non-existent, fanfiction sites may be the only sense of community a young woman may get in her life. Through the writing of fanfiction, young women learn that they can be makers and that their expression is valuable because it is their own. And a common trope used for this expression is the Mary Sue. This trope is a power fantasy in which a female character representing the author joins the main characters and proves to be the best of them all. And as mentioned before, it serves as a great form of escapism in a world that is constantly telling girls that they aren't capable people and pushes them to the sidelines. The Mary Sue gets a lot of hate due to misogyny, but it's a very important trope to allow young girls and women to rewrite media that neglects them so they can reclaim their agency. As I gleefully explored Wattpad and AO3 for the first time in years, I stumbled across stories where the main character was clearly a Mary Sue, and I took note of how the female characters were described. I was curious about the portrayal of women and girls and how the authors centered themselves in their chosen universe. Now it's time to actually talk about fanfiction. Yay! A fanfiction story set in the Stranger Things universe, which by the way is a fandom term that basically describes the continuity of a story. It follows an original character, OC, that is the younger sister of Steve Harrington, who is an actual character from the television series, and she is thrust among the main group of boys from the show. She is described as a problem child. The whole town gossips about her delinquent activities, but she doesn't care. This group of boys, which the main boys from the show, are intimidated by her because of her bad reputation, but they also see her as a cool girl. While she is described as a problem child, she doesn't really exhibit any morally questionable traits. She is just outwardly expressing the normal teenage angst that is only afforded to the boys in the media. Girls are socialized to be quiet and small, but the author of the story rejects that idea. Her Mary Sue is loud, outspoken, and unapologetic in her actions. The author may have an unfulfilled need to be heard and seen, which is why her character is the center of attention of the town in this fanfiction. Another Mary Sue example I found comes from the Summer I Turned Pretty fandom. This fanfic is about yet another young woman, of course, who is the center of attention in the town. Again, she is effortlessly beautiful. She is kind and graceful to all those around her. She was Conrad Fisher's first love. This telling of the story pushes aside the series' main character, Belly, and makes the author's OC the main love interest. She is the golden girl that captures the love and affection of the Fisher brothers and the jealousy of the other girl in the story. She has no negative traits and gets along with everybody. So it seems like this particular author just has a need maybe to be seen and have that romantic fulfillment. Both of these fanfics express a similar sentiment, which is the need to be seen and heard, the center of attention in their own way. But they also have a common problem as well. These works don't challenge the stereotypical idea of femininity or beauty. Obviously, not every work needs to deconstruct the patriarchal heteronormative idea of what a woman should be. But I do wonder how such works affect the readers actively trying to escape those expectations. How do these stories further perpetrate beauty norms? They challenge gender norms and reject the idea that girls should be quiet and not take up space. Even though one is a romance story, the main character does not revolve her life around the man that is her love interest. But when it comes to beauty standards, the authors stick to conventionally attractive women through the use of gifts of beautiful Hollywood actresses to portray the OCs in their stories. Now, this has the possibility to contribute to social comparison by the reader and limits what can be imagined as they experience the story. The publishing industry should look to fanfiction sites not just to scout popular authors with hit stories, but to also discover the available opportunities for a wide variety of stories that readers are craving, especially women of color and queer women who are even more marginalized and lacking the needed representation in mainstream media. Wattpad is already taking advantage of this space and the data it provides with their own print publishing house called Wattpad Books. The company actively emphasizes the importance of recognizing and uplifting diverse voices, and it provides many tools for creators to hone their craft so they can effectively tell the stories they want to tell and potentially get paid for it. There is much to learn and appreciate about the art of fanfiction and the value it provides to young girls and women. It's accessible, it's free, it's a form of escapism that allows a break from the issues and problems that arise from a capitalist society in which women are consistently undervalued, underpaid, and overworked. A society where they are expected to sit down and be quiet. A society where they are pushed to the margins. The reading and writing of fanfiction allow them to rebel and center themselves in the narrative while engaging in a fictional world that is familiar to them. As someone who actively engaged in fanfiction in my formative years, I know firsthand the positive effects that these spaces and stories can have on a young teenage girl with multiple insecurities. It's important that teen girls and young women are able to shamelessly engage with these spaces in order to have a small escape from the suffocating reality of capitalism and social media.